I've been thinking a lot lately about guilt. Guilt is the most intense emotion that I have experienced so far as a medical student. And I have experienced a lot of different emotions, I think, over my time in medical school and before. But there's something about guilt, I think, that has been very specific to this whole medical school experience. And as I've spoken to my classmates and my friends at other medical schools, I think across the board, they either don't relate at all to what I'm talking about, or they have this really automatic response where they're like, "Yes, absolutely, you're seeing into my soul, for sure, for sure." I thought it was enough, probably common enough, where maybe I should try to verbalize and talk about it. The central basis for this guilt comes from the volume of material that we have to master and how that changes the lifestyle of a medical student. Oftentimes is composed of lots and lots of hours of studying. So I think the guilt is that when you were doing something besides that sometimes at okay, I guess I'll talk about my own personal experience since I know probably not everybody experiences it the same. Is that like, sometimes I'll be doing something else and I'll spend the day, like if I take a day off or I take 2 days off or something, which is just, wow, that's a lot. In my head, I feel guilty that I am not studying. And that guilt really eats at me. And it's just like a constant baseline guilt. It's actually, so it's like almost always there. And then sometimes it's a little bit more intense depending on how much time I like spent not being productive. And sometimes you forgive yourself for this guilt, and sometimes you forgive yourself, and then later it comes back full fold when you are cramming closer to when you need to master the material. And then when you are studying all of the time and you're completely dedicating your life to your studies, sometimes you miss things like I don't get to go home as often as maybe I would like to, or talk to my parents on the phone as much as, or my sisters as much as I would like to. I don't get to catch up with friends as often as I sometimes feel like I should. And I don't really know what's going on in my friends' lives, and I don't really keep up with the news. Is something that's important to me. Current events, sometimes I come out of those and I don't know what's going on. And so then there's that guilt, too, that guilt. And then there's my hobbies. So like, listening to certain podcasts or maybe reading something or doing things that I like to do, or exercising regularly. And when I miss that, I feel guilty about that. So then you go and you do those things and then you feel guilty again about not studying. And it's this vicious cycle of like guilt on guilt on guilt. And like I said, there's always a baseline guilt about something. Right now there's a baseline guilt that I should be studying for my neuroscience exam that I need to, do really well on next week. And instead I'm making a YouTube video. The conclusion that I've come to personally is that I think it's not really as important to get rid of these feelings as it is to learn to manage them and make sure that they don't overcome you. Because I like to think that maybe, at least for me, maybe the guilt comes from a caring, a need to care. And I want to study, not really, I mean, personally, not so much because I want to be on top of the class, but because I just want to be my best. I don't want to feel like I didn't give my best. And then I will feel like I let myself down. And, so there's guilt from that. And when I don't feel like I did my best, then I feel guilty, like I'm just like disappointed in myself, and then myself is guilty for letting myself down. Or it's just this crazy thing, and then guilty for all of the other parts of my life not keeping up. But I think Something that has been really helpful is like saying out loud to friends, to my classmates. I have a couple classmates who say this all the time. They're just like, I didn't do anything yesterday. It's okay. And you have to say that. You have to out loud say, and it's okay. And we will move forward. And sometimes just that verbal affirmation is enough to continue.